Steven Andrus here for thelines.com, playpicks.com, joined by senior writer at thelines.com, Mo Nawara. In this video, we are going to be talking about Major League Baseball futures. As we record, we're less than a week into the regular season. A lot of these futures that Mo has bet are still on the board. We'll see how close the prices are, and we'll follow along here on the lines.com website so you can see the best available odds across legal sports books in the U.S. Mo, we're going to be talking about a lot of markets here. We're talking about MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and of course, team futures, World Series, division winners, some of these teams that you liked. Before we get into it here, I just want to show people where on the lines.com they can find these things. If they go to the drop-down menu under odds and under MLB, you'll find all these different markets, World Series, MVP, Cy Young. Mo, let's start with World Series here. As we are recording this in the early stages of the season, not much movement here in terms of futures, but there is a bit of a shortening of the price of one team you bet here before the start of the season, the Toronto Blue Jays, which you got at plus 1,000, 10-1, as we see here across legal books, anywhere between plus 800 and plus 900. What did you like about the Blue Jays coming into the season?
A lot of things. So definitely the lineup. I mean, I think everyone knows how strong this lineup is. Last year's MVP runner-up, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and didn't get close to a full season, honestly, from George Springer. And with him back in the fold, and Teoscar Hernandez really playing much better than I think a lot of people expected last year. And now I think a lot of the projections are kind of buying into him as a very good player. Already hit a dinger this year. So off to a solid start. And then I think there's some dead cat bounce potential from Matt Chapman for sure. I mean, career worst season last year. Can't really get worse than that, I wouldn't think. So any sort of rebound from him, I mean, pretty strong chance this is the best lineup in baseball, I think.
For sure. Hard to argue that they are atop the board in terms of American League contenders. Obviously, the Dodgers are at the very top of the board, anywhere from plus 475 to 5-1. If we're looking at longer shots here, I know I've done this in the past. I did it last year. They weren't a long shot, but 20-1 on the Astros last year, the Brewers as well. So if you get them into the playoffs, you have the option to hedge at that point. Two teams that you like a little bit further down the board here, the Minnesota Twins and the Miami Marlins. Now, as you can see, I'm still scrolling here. We finally find them. The Twins anywhere between 45-1 to 55-1. The Marlins anywhere between 80 and 90-1. You got the Marlins before the start of the season at 82-1. The Twins you locked in at 60-1. So, slightly different prices on the Twins at this point. But tell us let's start with the Twins. First of all, what did you like about them coming in? And would you still be interested at 55-1 at this point?
Yeah, I think it's still fine. So for Toronto, the price has dropped a little bit. I think if you're only getting plus 800, you're starting to get into the territory where I'm a little iffier on that one. I was a little disappointed to only get plus 1,000 after it was, I think it was plus 1,200 a few days before I got to it. Unfortunately, had to drive, I have to set up my drives across to Iowa to get into the legal books. So, it unfortunately had moved down a little bit. And yeah, for Minnesota, honestly, they're built a lot like Toronto. So I didn't really get into it with the Blue Jays, but their big issue last year was their bullpen was atrocious. And that's the kind of thing that you can't really usually like bounce from year to year and say, it's going to carry over either good or bad in a lot of cases. Bullpen performance tends to fluctuate quite a bit because you're just looking at like pretty small sample sizes for most of the pitchers. Like if a pitcher throws 70 innings in the pen, they threw quite a bit, right? So you're looking at a number there where it's like 1/3 of a starting pitcher season, and you can't even take a starting pitcher's full season line as like necessarily meaningful in a lot of cases. So that gives you an idea of just how meaningless a 70 inning sample honestly really is. So it's the type of thing that should kind of normalized closer to the league average. So as far as specifically the Twins go, they didn't quite make the improvement there that I was hoping, I guess, just because they traded away Taylor Rogers, their closer, which was a little disappointing to me. He was their one elite arm in the pen, but they needed a lot of help in the rotation as well. I think they're just kind of a middle class man's version of the White Sox, and the White Sox are just considered like so far ahead of them in the markets, and I'm just not really seeing why. The lineups are comparable, and then I understand like the White Sox have more reliable arms at the top of their rotation in Dylan Cease, probably, if he's as good as last year, and definitely Lucas Giolito. But beyond that, it's like pretty iffy. And the Twins are just having a lot of kind of solid average type arms. So if some of these guys overperform and the pen isn't a complete disaster the way it was last year, I just don't see why they should be this far behind the White Sox. And yeah, I think with Correa in the fold, a potential MVP candidate, maybe we can talk about that later.
Definitely.
Just can't really see them being this long of shots. I do like some of their young pitching as well. So Joe Ryan, Bailey Obear, these guys look like decent pitchers to me. So anything they can get out of Dylan Bundy and Chris Archer is going to help. Their rotation is definitely a question mark. Not going to sit here and pretend like it's not. But for 60-1, I think, you're getting compensated for that more so than you probably should be.
Mo, before we move on to the Marlins, I also want to mention that you have bet the Twins at plus 575 to win the division as we record, plus 525 still available at Caesars, 5-1 still widely available. So again, just going back to that point you made that you don't see as big of a gap between the White Sox and the Twins as the market does currently. Again, if we go back to World Series markets here, back down to the Marlins. Now, this one surprised me a little bit because, I obviously recognize the strength of their starting pitching. I love the arms that they have and the youth that they have coming up through their system. But I was wondering if they might still be like a year away. And I know you bet them at 82-1. I wonder I guess I'm just going to ask you outright because the Phillies got all of the hype. The Mets are spending a boatload of money with their new billionaire owner. The Braves are the defending World Series champions. How much of this is about the Marlins? How much of this is about expanded playoffs for you?
Expanded playoffs is big for a team like the Marlins. It's big for a team like the Twins as well. Just helping these teams that are not necessarily expected to win their division, and giving them a shot, really. It's baseball. Just getting in is huge because of the variance inherent to the game, right? We've seen that in the past with teams like the Cardinals. That one year they won it. They weren't necessarily the best team or even all that close, but people get hot at the right time and, variance falls in your favor. All of a sudden you're in the World Series. So I think I would agree with you. It's probably more likely than not that the Marlins are a year away, but they do have a little bit of talent coming up in the lineup that they didn't have last year, like getting a full season from Jesus Sanchez. Joey Wendell was a decent pickup from the Rays. He's been a solid player. Jacob Stallings was one of the better catchers actually last year. They got him from the Pirates. And then, honestly, if everything popped perfectly for Jazz Chisholm, he could be an MVP candidate. So there's definitely some potential. Oh, they picked up Soler too, obviously a monster for the Braves in the playoffs last year. And just a hitter who has previously had some really strong seasons and some not so strong seasons. But when you're getting 82-1, you're just getting a price where you can bake in the chance of a pretty poor season from him and just take the loss, right? Yeah. So yeah, like you said, the starting pitching for sure is tremendous. I had questions about the bullpen for sure, was not a fan of it, but was just hoping for some like regression, dead cat bounce type of deal. But then they scooped up Cole Sulser from the Orioles, which is pretty big. He has one of the better projections for a reliever out there. He was very, very good last year. And Tanner Scott, I think, is a reasonable arm to have in your rotation or your bullpen as well. So the bullpen looks more middle class to me than it did 2 weeks ago.
For sure. In my mind, Mo, when I look at this division, it's interesting to me because I feel like the Phillies have a better chance of making the playoffs with their just incredible lineup. But if they actually get to the playoffs, I think they would struggle because of their pitching and defense. Whereas the Marlins, if they actually get to the playoffs, I think they could be really dangerous with this pitching that they have. So, but you got to get there first, right? When you're doing futures. And, with that being said, you're getting double the price on the Marlins than you are on the Phillies. So I can't argue with you there in terms of the potential value down the road. The only other team futures market we haven't discussed that you have in your account comes by way of the AL West, and it's not often I see you laying the juice in a baseball futures, but here we are with the Houston Astros. You laid -162 for them to win the AL West, -170, the current best price available as we record right now. What led you to this decision?
Yeah, this one, another one I think is still bettable. So you're right. Not something I do that often, take the chalk, but I think it's warranted in this case. I think the Astros are just quite a bit better than the other teams. In the AL West, I'm pretty down on the AL West in general. I don't love the Mariners or the Angels, and I think Oakland is going to be incredibly awful. I have quite a bit on under 70 and a half wins there. I got lucky. I got it in before they traded. I'm trying to remember if it was just before they traded Manaea or it was before they also traded. God, I'm like blanking on the other starter they traded.
Long story short, they're fire sailing before April even hit.
Yeah, I got pretty fortunate there. I don't think you're going to be able to find those numbers anymore. But yeah, not a huge fan of the teams in the AL West, honestly. Tons of hype on the Mariners, and I think you were talking about a year away on the Marlins. I think the Mariners should also be in that category, but they're getting much more hype with I think a win total of 84.5. They have some very good prospects. Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic last year fell flat on his face, but he was considered to be an elite prospect. But I think that's part of the issue. They're just relying on a lot of young players, a lot of hype on this Matt Brash kid they brought up for the rotation. He struck out 1 million guys in the minors, but also walked 1 million. I would guess he's going to struggle more than people expect. Logan Gilbert, another guy who was very good last year, and I think is driving a lot of this hype, but there are other arms. Like I said, I'm not convinced by Matt Brash. Chris Flexen and Marco Gonzalez are pretty mediocre at best. Robbie Ray, obviously very good, but I just never like to bank on anybody coming off a career year like that.
For sure. Okay, let's transition now to player award futures in Major League Baseball. You can find that if you go to the top drop down button at thelines.com under odds under MLB. Let's head to MVP to start us off here for player award futures. And, you touched on this just a moment ago, Mo, but Carlos Correa is the first name you mentioned earlier. Why do you like him?
Well, when it comes to Correa, he has like such a strong base of WAR. I think you touched on this when you wrote up Max Muncy last year about how WAR driven these awards are.
Awards, yeah, for sure. I feel you're right though, because the voting community in baseball is very much moving more towards these advanced metrics than they have, a decade ago.
So when you start as a shortstop who hits very well, your WAR floor is like tremendous, right? You're like starting at 4 WAR pretty much every season. So that's very good base for Correa. So then if he just like hits the high end of his projections, he would pretty easily get up to 6 or 7 WAR, which is where you start to be a very like prime candidate for MVP. And I think just good narrative potential behind him, moving to a team that was trash last year. And if they bounce back and contend like I think they should, then I think that helps his case quite a bit.
In the early going, available anywhere from 25 to 1 to 50 to 1, depending on where you shop. Again, illustrating why it is important to go out and find the best number on these guys. You're getting half the value at 25 to 1 than if you were to go to FanDuel and get 50 to 1 as we record this right now. So, that's why we encourage you guys to use our website, thelines.com, because we give you all those prices in one spot to find it incredibly easy. And if you don't have an account at that book, you're going to get outstanding promo and bonus offers for signing up for that book just by clicking on the odds there in this table. Let's move on here, Mo. A couple other long shots for you. I believe George Springer and Pena as well. Tell us a little bit about each of those guys and why you bet them.
So for George Springer, like I said, did not put together a full season or even come close last year, but he's in a somewhat similar boat to Correa where he's playing a premium defensive position. So that helps his WAR quite a bit as long as he doesn't kind of completely blow it there, which he's been a little up and down in his career as a defender, it looks like. So I don't think we can count on like a huge bump in defense, but as long as he just plays like something close to average defense, it just boosts your WAR quite a bit to be contributing basically at a premium position. And so if he hits like he has in his career, which he's been well above average, and then just hits basically, again, the high end of his projections, we're looking for guys whose 80th plus percentile performance is going to put them in the MVP discussion. And I think clearly with George Springer, that is the case. He has hit, that 155 WRC plus where you're like a really elite bat at that point. Injuries have been an issue at times for him, but he's also put together several full seasons or close. So still close to his prime, age 32 season here. I think he could definitely hit the high end for a team that's, like I said, if Toronto's as good as I think, we've seen so often how a guy like Mike Trout has trouble getting traction with voters when his team stinks. And I don't think that should be a concern with any of the Blue Jays. And obviously it's kind of sucks that they have so many other elite guys like Vlad, and these guys are probably going to have potential to take some votes away. We basically need Springer to kind of outperform his teammates, which is a long shot, but that's why we're getting 50 to 1.
For sure. And you had one more MVP, I think, right?
So for MVP, that was it. But Rookie of the Year, I did like Jeremy Pena from the Astros. Somehow his odds went longer. I'm pretty surprised because he kind of had a huge first weekend. They were interviewing his family and he hit a dinger. So that was pretty cool.
And his odds went longer.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I guess they're just going off Bobby Witt Jr. had a game-winning RBI over the weekend on the worst pitch of the season that I've seen so far. So thank you for that, Tristan McKenzie, since I had...
Talk about small sample sizes,
I had the Guardians
right?
there. Yeah, it's just like a little bit, I don't know. I'm surprised that he's getting longer odds, I guess, just because, again, he's starting at a premium position for a team that I expect to be in contention. So these Rookie of the Year awards, I think, aren't quite as team driven. I've definitely seen more guys, I think, just anecdotally on poor teams, because those are the teams where rookies are more easily able to break in, right? But yeah, I think starting for a contender at a premium position gives Pena a great shot.
And it looks like you locked him in your account at 12 to 1. We're seeing right now anywhere between 10 and 15 to 1. You have one other AL Rookie of the Year stab. You bet Ryan at 20 to 1. You can get him as high as 25 to 1 at the moment if you have Caesars Sportsbook in your state. Just quick thoughts here on Ryan.
Yeah, Joe Ryan for the Twins. Super impressive start last season. Unfortunately, not the best start to this. That's probably why the odds lengthened. He walked, I think, 4 batters in 4 innings in his first start of the season, but long season. Hopefully we can bounce back. Yeah, his numbers were incredible last year. 10.13 Ks per 9, and just hardly walked anybody. Walks were opposite of an issue. It was a strength for him last year. So pretty surprising to see that. But yeah, he's a guy who just was incredible in the minors too. I just completely crushed it at AAA for both the Rays and the Twins. I think he's just a much better player, I guess, than his prospect grades make him out to be. So again, I'm hoping if the Twins have a nice season, he's going to find himself in contention.
I love that. It's baseball, right? One bad start is not going to make or break your awards campaign. That's for darn sure. Okay, last but not least, Mo, our final awards market that we'll talk about is NL Cy Young. And this is a guy that is near and dear to both of our hearts. Me as a Philadelphia Phillies fan, and you as just a guy looking for great value. A guy who was a reliever to start last year, transitioned to have more than 10 starts as a starting pitcher, and still had an ERA under 1.5, I believe, a year ago. The man is none other than Ranger Suarez. And I'm going to show you a couple spots here where you can shop for the best odds on him. Mo, I know you got him at 100-1 during spring training. So the first thing I'll show you here is the prop finder tool. If you go under odds, hit prop finder tool, you just search his name. Here's Ranger Suarez, and you find all his daily props for when he's playing. But if you scroll down, you'll find his award markets, and obviously he's gotten some attention at PointsBet. He's down to 50-1 there. But you could still find him at 90-1 at DraftKings, 80-1 at FanDuel and BetMGM. Let's go back to our Cy Young page here under odds, under MLB. You click on Cy Young and you'll be able to see where his price compares to the other players in the market for NL Cy Young. And just tell us a little bit about what drew you to my boy Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, Ranger won us quite a bit of dough, if I recall, last year. I mean, he was just amazing last year. Plenty of strikeouts, an absolute ton of ground balls, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think that could be the bugaboo this year, but yeah, I guess he just came out, it looks like, throwing quite a bit harder than he had in his career. Throwing 93.8 was his average fastball velocity last year. The previous season, he had only been at 91.8. Even though it's only 3 appearances, fastball velocity is one of those things that like stabilizes super quick. So I think we can actually take away that he has made a jump in true talent level there. And yeah, tremendous contact management, 86.7 average exit velocity. That's going to put him close to the elite tier, if not there. 2.6% barrel. I mean, nobody could square this guy up. He's getting about a lead.
And they got plenty of tape on him, right? Like it's not like it was like 3 or 4 starts. It was more than 10 starts. I think it was like 13 or 14 starts. So there was plenty of time for other teams to get tape on him and make adjustments, and nobody could.
Yeah,
right?
And that's actually one of the interesting things. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the kind of principles of baseball is you're going to do worse as a starter than a reliever, right? So you can dive into his splits and see that he was actually better as a starter last year in 77 innings compared to his 96 innings as a reliever. And that's kind of crazy. I don't know exactly how he's doing it, but he's doing it. And if he keeps doing it at something close to this, I'm not saying he's going to have a 1.36 ERA, but it's really hard to find holes in what he did. And yeah, he's just an awesome pitcher that people, like you said, they had plenty of chances. I mean, he threw 100 innings last year. It's not a full season, but it's not like anybody should have been shocked by the end. And he was just mowing people down. So first start tonight. So we'll see how he looks. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited as well. And let's just everybody keep this in perspective. We're not saying he's the second coming of Jacob deGrom, but at 90-1, it's worth a couple bucks to sprinkle on there and see if he can,
I guess I should say,
keep his magic going, right?
Yeah, and I guess I should say, so what I was getting at, I guess, is I am worried. We've talked about this. The Phillies defense, how many ground balls he allows. I'm a little scared for a disproportionate amount of those to become hits this year, but you know, there's variance in that too. So maybe he can get lucky.
For sure, for sure. The only other guy I'll mention is one that's in my account for NL Cy Young, and it's Trevor Rogers at 60-1. I just love his talent. He's young. He misses bats for the Marlins. He was very strong with FIP a year ago. I think he's got a really bright future, and I could see a situation where, you know, if Jacob deGrom breaks down again at the top of this market, he's already had some issues coming into the season. Max Scherzer's getting up there in age. We've seen a couple of the Brewers guys struggle early on here. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen, right, in these markets. We saw that last year where deGrom gets hurt. It completely blew up the market. We got some really good numbers on guys. But betting on talent there with Trevor Rogers. Just any quick thoughts on him, Mo, before we wrap up?
I mean, just like you said, tremendous bat missing ability, 14% swinging strikes. That is elite stuff that he brings to the table. The command wasn't as good, but if he even takes any kind of small step forward, yeah, he is a very talented pitcher, throwing really hard, 94 from the left side, which is close to premium velocity. The projections are bought in that he's a very good pitcher. So if he, again, like we were saying, you just want guys who their 80th plus percentile outcome is going to put them in contention. And I think you definitely have to say that would be the case for Trevor Rogers. He's already projected by Zips to go 3.38 ERA this year. So if he finds his like 3 ERA even, he's going to be right there. I think the concern with him is just going to be what sort of like length he can give you, because WAR is a counting stat, and he only threw 133 innings last year. So we're going to need probably at least 30 more than that this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. But 60-1, I'll take my shot. Mo, as always, thank you so much for the fantastic insight here on MLB Futures. If you want to ask Mo a question, chat him up, head to our Discord channel, top right corner of the lines.com page. Yeah,
great discussion every day.
You're having some good conversations with the baseball diehards, right?
Oh man, it's great in there. I've been really enjoying it.
Awesome. So top right corner, hit this Discord button there. It's free to join, unlike a lot of the other sports betting sites that are out there that are charging you premium subscriptions to get into their Discord channel. So be sure to check it out, not only for baseball, but for our other sports as well. So that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it helped to help you navigate these MLB futures. But for Mo Nawara, I'm Steven Andrus. Thanks for watching. See you next time.